everybody, to a Friday night Rock Ball Report podcast. I am your host, Bill season ticket holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. It has been a hell of a week, and it's our first time recording on a Friday night in, I don't even remember. Chris, have we ever?
Yeah, we've covered every day. It's been a couple weeks. We did a Friday, I think.
Done a couple bar shows.
Less than a month ago.
Boys and girls, it's happy hour. It's time. We're going to end the week. It's a pre-Father's Day celebration.
Yeah. Shout out to your father.
You know, I didn't find him when I was down there in Mexico. Didn't even see him. Guys, what a time to be alive. Buffalo Bills are celebrating basically the winding down of their mandatory minicamp. It's been takes on takes on takes and a couple weeks of just a lot of nonsense being thrown around. And I got to say, I have a hard time with it, but not as hard of a time as our resident unemployed Chris Kruger had with his first day back in the working world. Chris, raise up your glass. You earned it today. Your first day of work in how long?
Like 7 months.
Guys, Chris, how far into the day did you make it before you said your first piece of profanity?
I mean, this started yesterday. So obviously I'm not going to tell you who I work for and really what I do.
Yeah, it's probably not advisable.
It's like a 180 from what I was doing. It's technically an office job. And I haven't had an office job since I was like a junior loan officer at MetLife in 2009. Yesterday was interesting because you're just getting back into so it's a work from home job. So I had to go to the office, do all the prelim stuff, get your computer, get your monitors, take your photo, meet some people because it's all work from home. So you won't remember faces anytime soon. I remember there was one girl that was late who was from Tonawanda complaining, had to immediately bring up benefits and her therapist. And I'm like, lady, you're from Tonawanda. Your therapist should be Caputi's Wine and Liquor. It was irritating. And then this morning, said woman is the only other new hire a part of my Teams meeting that I'm in. So it's like training.
You in a Teams meeting must be, guys. As somebody who manages people who work remotely, Chris in a Teams meeting must be one of the greatest things. I mean, just to see the image of a guy with that hair and yet all of the personality of like a hornet that just got shaken in a jar, I'm telling you, it has to be a thing of beauty.
So here's where my issues started. So this morning I woke, log in at 8 a.m. Couldn't log in. I had to change my password 6 times.
Guys, this is a guy who literally got into a back and forth fight with our podcast host, Blue Wire, because they wanted him to change his password. And he was like, why?
Change the email address.
He was like, why should I have to change? You guys are the ones who suck and keep flip-flopping.
Yeah, Ralph Wilson, I'm not at Pharaoh's, unfortunately. I know, a completely different line of work. But it was said therapist woman and me is the only new hires in this Teams meeting I was in. But aside from that, there was 15 to 20 new hires. So you have 2 different training managers have half of the new hires. For whatever reason, I was put in both Teams chats. So I'm seeing all these messages come, group message with each different new hire teams when I should only be associated with one of them. And in my head, I had already said the R word.
See, this is why you see
12 times.
Now, this is what I want to say, guys. Look at me. Give me the camera. Chris is not cut out for the corporate world. And so this is going to be an amazing experiment to watch him psychologically unravel over the course of the next probably 5 months, if he lasts that long, before he just loses it and goes back to manufacturing. Because honestly, speaking to no one and just like driving tires around or machining or building something.
Yeah, being in that manufacturing
That's
setting.
what you need to be. You inside of an office is the most hilarious. Like, we could make a sitcom out of this, except it's like a reality TV show that's actually funny. It would be just a real chef's kiss. The R word, realist, ridiculous, reprobate. I can think of a bunch of R words that Chris would be using in this type of a scenario. And what I do think is that he really just is not cut out for this emotionally. It's not just the capacity to type on a computer or be part of a team. No. Working in a corporate setting takes a sense of, like, it takes a real sense of chutzpah, because you're going to get spoon-fed the dumbest things you've seen and heard over and over and over again, and you have to find a way to surf that.
So
And
like
what I know about you is you're not cut out for that.
9:30, I was in a Teams meeting, and I was getting pinged to join another for the other, like this other group. And I'm like telling the woman in the Teams meeting, I'm like, I'm getting invited to this other. And that's when we found out, like, oh, I'm a part of both new hire groups. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, she was like, share your screen. So we're like scrolling through the other group Teams meeting. And I'm like, these people, like, there's a couple people that sent memes. And I'm like, everyone in this group, their meme game is weak. And she was like, well, she sent me.
Chris, because you have to be politically correct here. This isn't like our group chat.
The trading hire sent me the link to Giphy, like Giphy.com. Like, oh, this is like a good website to get memes. And I go, if I sent memes, I would get fired.
You're not supposed to admit that, though. And that's why I can't wait to watch Chris rejoin the working world. Chris, raise your glass. After your first hard week of work, you've earned it.
The best part of it was the end of the day. So there's like 15 minutes left. I haven't said much in the chat. And I told the training woman, I was like, well, I speak when spoken to. Because like most of my answers are like, yes, no, I see that. Because I'm following along. And so it's like bullshit talk to end the day. And so she like brought up restaurants. And I'm like, okay, I guess you're asking me about restaurants, but very broad. So I was like, well, we're in Buffalo, so I'll just talk about chicken wings. I go, like, everybody's going to tell you, you got to go to Bar-Bill, East Aurora, Clarence. I was like, my go-to is Man Mosers. Both of them. What's Bar-Bill? They literally had never heard of Bar-Bill. And then I trashed Tonawanda, and then the training woman brought up chefs, and I'm like, oh, Buffalo's Olive Garden? That's an app. Like, she just like found out in the last 10 minutes of day that how serious my opinions are of certain things and how I'm just dug in.
Guys, in the chat, I want you all to put it exactly. Spin, hit the nail on the head. What's the under-over on how long Chris lasts before he's unemployed again? Guys, I thought my Bosa bet was like a hot takey kind of a thing. No. I want it in the chat. Everyone watching live, everybody who watches this afterwards, in the chat, email us, smoke signals, however you got to have it. The under-over on Chris's weeks of employment. I'm going to come up with a line by the end of the show tonight, and we're going to take the under or over. I want Seagram's bets on this thing.
Well, we
got to move on.
Okay, I'm just saying, I had an interview last week. So if I get that job, I'm leaving this one.
Of course, that's every job. If you have an interview, then you will leave. That's the reason you're interviewing. Now, guys, Chris did bring something awesome to the studio. You know, with the passing of our partnership with Montucky, now that they've gone corporate, Chris was able to find something new to adorn the studio.
Yeah, I was at a estate sale, and I bought this Colt 45 light-up sign.
He found this thing straight out of 1970.
$22.
Chris is the new handicap. He really is. Ruff Wilson Sr., that's the best comment I think we're going to get from this. He is the new handicap. Guys, we've been blessed with this brand new Colt 45 sign. It lights up. It's clearly from 1972. That's how you know it's going to be a good summer, right? Chris has a job. We've got the Colt 45 sign. what could possibly go wrong? Now, theme of tonight's show, minicamp. We're talking about all the things that have been discussed, headlines, interesting topics that have come out of the OTA and minicamp portion of Bill's activities over the last few weeks. And I think number one with a bullet on top of the list for everyone is this James Cook non-story. And I want to start because this is the kind of thing that this is why the offseason stinks. It stunk, and then it stinks worse now that I make content. And I say that now like it's new. I've been doing this for a decade, and maybe that's left me a little jaded. Maybe it's made me a little cynical. I don't know. It's just the off season is hard because while stuff is happening on a football field, it's very little, and there's all this empty space. So people fill it up with postulation about things, that projections of things, and I just can't bring myself to care about 90% of it. Now, part of that's me being, part of it's me doing this. Again, for a very long time. Part of it's that I'm a cynic at heart and I really don't care about other people's opinions. That's just narcissism. Maybe it's the amount of time I've spent behind this microphone. Maybe it's all the summers that I've poured into this, this art form only to learn what does and doesn't actually end up making a difference when real football games start getting played in September. Maybe it's having 2 kids and a really demanding job that drives me crazy. Maybe it's having a 1991 kayak pool. Yes, an above ground pool in my backyard. That seemed like a really cool idea when I bought my house, and now I just want to drive my truck into it and send it back to hell where it belongs. Maybe that's everything. Or maybe it's because we, as a football consuming society, have given rise to a rash of conjecture that I can't get there. And it's usually because it either falls flat, it's proven false, or again, you find out that it just doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. The James Cook scenario is a perfect example of this. There have been hours and hours of podcasts, hours and hours of television, all recorded about the status of James Cook, this contract impasse he has with the Buffalo Bills. People have written articles. They've called into radio stations and given diatribes about their opinion on what James Cook should and should not do. And the team, and he's got a contract, and they've pounded tables. So Adam Schefter, okay, we're not talking about Joe from Tonawanda who called into WGR 550. We're talking about Adam Schefter on June 8th tweets out that James Cook has disconnected from the city of Buffalo, selling his house, won't be in camp anytime soon. And that obviously sparks the local media and all the content creators who latch onto this, and they run amok with headlines everywhere. I mean, I'm not trashing anybody, but New York Upstate, Ryan Talbot and Matt Perino over there had pieces about it. Bill's Squad with Joe Marino and his gang, Yahoo Sports, NFL Network, everybody took this topic and Adam Schefter's singular tweet about this impasse that existed between team and player and ran with it.
I got to correct you there. It's Yahoo Sports sponsored by AI.
Yes.
Since they fired all their writers.
They fired all their writers.
And it's all done by AI.
So 2 days after Schefter sets the world on fire with this tweet of his, he's not only in Buffalo, he's participating in drills. And what's even more embarrassing is that Adam Schefter, Chris and I looked for it before the show because I was like, that would be a cool thing to throw up there on the internet. He has since deleted his original tweet that started all of this nonsense in the first place. Chris, how lame is it? Like, I say some wild things. I don't delete any of them. I'd like there to be a permanent record of my stupidity out there, carved so deep into the internet that you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, we don't delete shit. If anything gets deleted, it's something I tweeted and it was grammatically incorrect. And I'll delete it and put it out with the correct grammar. Which
happens at an alarming rate, which again, you in an office is just going to be awesome. You with access to Teams and having to use it is going to be awesome, knowing how you type and how you tweet. But this is what I love. Adam Schefter, who is known for the breaker of scoops, right? It's him and Rappaport, the 1A and 1B of scoops in the NFL. And all of this information is generally spoon-fed to him by either agents or front office personnel, all of whom have some sort of agenda tied to it. He doesn't care. I mean, if good for Schefter, he's cashing that check. Even that guy was wrong. About as wrong as a guy could be about anything. And he's the guy with all the access, all the connections. He showed his ass and then had to hide it. It's amazing. It's amazing to me that we got to just see this and take it in. Like Schefter's inside scoop was 30 days late. So pardon me. I'm sorry, but pardon me if I don't rush to Bills Reddit or run to Twitter to go see what Thurman Fan 77 thinks about a given topic or what our local pundits are spinning these days about the football team. I mean, I've got to pull to scream profanity at. Like, I don't need the internet, and I sure as hell don't need a hot take to, kind of like clickbaity tweets from NFL insiders. I just don't need that. I mean, if you guys recall, the last time we got together and did one of these, I was pounding the table for James Cook to hold out. Like I said, he should, given what's at stake for him, he has every right to do it. I got a whole bunch of negative feedback from you people, but I don't care. I've made no bones over the years about the fact that I see football. Like, I don't deify any of these guys. They're just dudes with cooler jobs than I have. Definitely a cooler job than what Chris has. And they all still wipe one-handed, right? And most of them don't even, like, unlike me, they don't get the Maserati of toilet papers, the Cadillac 3-ply like I have. I mean, I hoard that for myself. Most of you plebeians who come over to my house, you get the Wegmans 2-ply, and you'll like it. So I'm over here. Like, what I just... Why would you want a guy to risk his health and his earning potential? I wouldn't wish that on any of you watching this right now, unless you're Mark Smith. Why... Why would anybody want to see somebody else get potentially injured and not be able to earn at their top potential anywhere, regardless of what your field of work is? Like, I don't know. I'm just as crappy of a human being as I might be. I'm not that ugly. And yet, like, when push came to shove, James Cook's standalone quote, "I like my money." It speaks for itself. It's what he told the reporters the first day of minicamp after skipping the OTA portion of practice, but showing up for the mandatory portion. This narrative and all of the fan-created and pundit-created drama surrounding it is obnoxious. And you can tell based on his actions and his words. And like, you hear Brandon Beane talk about how their relationship is great. And he's confident that Jimbo's going to show up to camp ready to roll. And when they asked Jimbo if he'd stage a hold-in, you know what his response was? I don't know. We're going to have to see. Like, and as someone who, like, I talked to, who was there when he was asked the question, he just seemed tired. When they asked him, it's almost like somebody asking you about, it's like when your wife asks you for the 5th time, like, did you remember to fold that laundry and put it away? And you're like, I don't know, maybe. I mean, it's a gray area, honey. I don't know. It's somewhere in the house and it's clean. Isn't that the important part? That's the energy James Cook hit the reporters with. And it smacks of a guy who just wants to do his job, but also wants to know he's going to get taken care of. And it sounds like he and the team still have an understanding on that. And who knows where things get to. At least they have that understanding, right? Whether he holds in or holds out. I mean, you look around the league, we're still in a better position than a lot of other teams. TJ Watt's not in the building for the Steelers. Not even in the building. Well, what's his name for the Shamar Stewart? Shamar Stewart showed up and left. So the Bengals didn't pay Trey Hendrickson, who won't show up to practices or minicamp or training camp, alleged by his own. He has said it out loud publicly. Shamar Stewart showed up, didn't get the deal he wanted. The Bengals are being the Bengals with his contract. He left. He goes, guys, I was here. Now I'm going home. Can you imagine, Chris, if James Cook had done that? Showed up for 2 days and then gone, nah, I'm done here.
That'd be hilarious. I mean,
like this shirt I'm wearing, that was inspired by the Vontae Davis quitting in the first quarter. Like, if he had just showed up for 40 minutes of practice and then gone, guys, I'm out of here.
I mean, I get Cook wanting to get his coin because, running backs generally have a short shelf life. Like I can think of like it didn't work out for Le'Veon Bell, who held out and missed most of the season. And I remember most recently Ezekiel Elliott, who got paid like they reworked his deal like 2 years into his rookie deal because, where's he been? Nowhere. But running back shelf life, get your money as soon as you can.
Yeah. And it sounds like at least, if nothing else, James Cook and our front office have an understanding. They get where each other's coming from. There doesn't seem to be any acrimony or bad blood. It's not like the Bengals situation. It's not even like the Cowboys and Micah Parsons, who showed up, got in the building so he didn't get fined, but then walked around in a tracksuit going, my back's a little tight. Back's a little tight, guys. Can't do nothing. He's showing up. He's out there catching balls from Josh Allen. He's doing the work. Is he happy about his contract? No. But he's doing what players who are involved in a team with a great culture, and I think one that's based on honesty, would do. I mean, I'm looking at this saying, Chris, it's like I said the other day, we had 100% participation. Even the rookies who just signed this week, who didn't have deals, they all showed up because our team has a culture and a track record of doing things right by its players. And so in that way, everybody shows up. Even the guys who have made it clear what they want publicly and aren't getting it still show up to work because at the end of the day, they trust this organization to the degree that they have to. That's all you can really ask for. Okay. Ralph Wilson Sr. in the comments, the understanding is Bean doesn't pay running backs. He now knows he needs a big season to get some play. It's entirely possible that him and his agent have exhausted everything and they're going to say, hey, look, he'll show up to camp and maybe he'll hold in for a few days. But ultimately, even he knows I'm going to have to show out then. I'm going to have to show up and have a great season. And yet every guy who takes the field in the NFL at some level wants to be a Super Bowl champion. And if you play for a team that looks like it's poised to do that, everybody, especially if your culture is strong, it's hard for you to try to be looked at as the guy who might drag that whole thing down. If you're a good teammate and you've bought into the culture, even if you're not happy with your role in it, you're not happy with your pay, there's things that you wish were better, you will still pull your own weight. And that's what he's doing right now. Training camp rolls around and he's holding in. I still don't begrudge him. I honestly would be a little surprised at this point. Would you, Chris?
I mean, dude, I get it. Dude's got to get his money. And if it so happens that this is his last year and Buffalo's not going to give him what he wants, his only option is to go to a team has a rookie QB deal. Because that's like the only way he's going to get his money. You don't see, high-paying quarterbacks also have high-paying running backs. It's not a thing that exists in the NFL.
No, and it's ultimately, this is why I want to point out off-season conjecture, in my opinion, stinks. I hate it because it's everyone's bored. They're looking for something to latch onto, and then this spreads like wildfire and turns out to be much ado about nothing. It just bothers me. It does, and it's why I try not to participate in it whenever possible.
Do you want to talk about, we can go back to talking about if Josh Allen could take a drought team to the AFC Championship game.
We could also just put
up nonsense.
We could also just drink a bunch of whiskey, put a 5-gallon bucket over my head and hit it with a wiffle bat. That's about as entertaining as that conversation.
I mean, these Manhattans are pretty legit.
I know. What'd you put in this?
It's Green River Rye, and this is the thing. This week I bought a bottle of sweet vermouth. The sweet vermouth is only good for 8 minutes.
Yep.
So now when I buy a bottle of sweet vermouth, I feel obligated that I have to drink
make Manhattans.
I have to make sweet vermouth related cocktails so I can go through the bottle because it's going to be bad in 2 weeks.
Jeremy Rogers in the comments. Are we going to talk about how alarming Allen's interceptions in practice are? Am I the only one super concerned? We can't just let him get away with this. No, there's actually a lot of really cool off-season storylines to talk about that aren't Jimbo Cook related. Like, how about this? Josh Allen, the aforementioned interceptions. Did you guys know that every off-season he invites a guy to camp? In fact, I have the name up here because I didn't want to forget it. He brings a guy to camp. His name is Chris Hess. Chris Hess is a digital mapping specialist that Josh Allen hires to come to 3 off-season practices. And Chris Hess's job is to set up cameras, multiple cameras all over the field, and then map Allen's throwing mechanics over the course of 3 practices throughout the course of the preseason so that he can almost build like mile markers for himself about his own mechanics and then compare them to last year's and see how week 1 in OTA is. How's the ball coming out of my hand? Am I throwing with enough lower body power? Do I look like I'm on time with my mechanics? Is everything in sequence properly? And then check in again, maybe middle of training camp. And then again, right before the preseason. Like, this is a level of detail I don't think most fans get. And I'm really happy to be reading this type of stuff. What was this? This was New York Upstate from, I believe this piece was by Matt Perino. It's an interesting nuance to the game of, people go, oh, well, Josh Allen, the Bills got lucky. Because we've watched this cycle now of the Bills having Josh Allen be an inaccurate rookie, go through 2018, 2019, turn into a prolific passer in 2020, and they go, oh, well, it's because he got Stephon Diggs, with no knowledge that he literally rebuilt his throwing mechanics that offseason from 2019 to 2020. And the fact that he's such a freak about this, he not only rebuilt his mechanics from the ground up, but spends his own personal money and his time to bring in people to help him maintain it. That's MVP stuff. That's the level of stuff that I wish someone was tweeting about this time of year. Pointing out when everybody's having the debate of why Josh Allen, every fan base is out there talking about why Joe Burrow doesn't get enough credit. Ravens and Bills fans jockeying on Twitter every day about who the best quarterback is. Do you hear Lamar Jackson putting in that level of work to try to not just make himself MVP, but stay there? I wish that there was more attention brought to narratives like that, Chris. Sticking with quarterbacks, I wish there was more attention being paid to this quarterback 2 position. Because I'll tell you what, all reports are that job, that's wide open. It's wide open.
I don't even know who else is here other than Mitchie Biscuits and Josh Allen.
Mike White.
He's still here.
Mike White. I wonder what it's like for him having to walk past Matt Milano all the time and be like, hey, Matt Milano, I wonder if they ever just sat down for a beer or they sat down for chicken wings and they had to look at each other across the table and Matt Milano had to be like, man, I am kind of sorry about almost killing you. I am sorry about fracturing your rib cage. I do kind of feel bad. I was doing my job, but I kind of feel bad. This is what's interesting. You're not hearing much about it, but Mike White outplayed Mitch Trubisky. Now it's practice and there's no pads and there's no hitting, but everybody with eyeballs can tell you that Mitch Trubisky, we've seen him play in the preseason. Chris, has he done anything physically that impresses you? I also find it alarming that he's entered Matt Barkley territory, where anytime Mitch Trubisky has had to come into a football game in place of Josh Allen, even if it's just for a couple plays, if it's for a short stint of time, they do not let him throw the football. They call runs. That's Matt Barkley territory, where they go, hey, guess what? We don't trust you to do this. Ipso facto, we're going to run the ball, and that's going to be the end of it. Everybody who's reported on camp will tell you, you got Joe Buscaglia underscoring he had Mitch Trubisky had a wide open Jalen Virgil and just grossly underthrew him. In a pass that almost ended up as an interception, illustrating the fact that over the course of Trubisky's career, deep passing, even though he came out of college with a strong arm, it's never really been his forte.
That's it. That's his passing.
Who?
Trubisky. The Patriot game last season.
Oh, yeah, 15 to 21 for 101 and a touchdown. Okay.
Yeah, and then they threw in Mike White, 3 for 11.
Well, and so this is my point, though. Throughout the preseason, all accounts are Mike White's having a better start to a better spring, we'll call it. Now, that may not mean much when camp rolls around, probably because Mike White will still be running with the threes. But there's an interesting quote from Brandon Beane about this, and I'm going to expand on why it's important. This is a direct quote. Mike White's played a lot of meaningful snaps. We put him on the practice squad and kind of last year and thought maybe he'd get plucked at some point, but we were fortunate to keep him here. I told him, listen, come back, compete, and let's make it the best man win. Our job is for us to find the best 53 we can, so these guys will have all their opportunities. Now, here's Brandon Beane publicly giving Mike White some support, even though they signed Mitch Trubisky to a 2-year deal last year. And I think that plays a role in it to a certain degree. When you look at Mitch Trubisky's contract, you can go to Spotrac.com. This year, he has a $3.2 million cap hit. But if we cut him at any point in time during the preseason, we only pay $750,000 in dead money. Releasing Mitch Trubisky from the roster would actually save the Bills about $1.75 million. And that's not nothing for a team that is, as they are every year, kind of nickel and diming their way into the season as it comes to the salary cap. So with that said, it's almost in the team's best interest that Mike White go into the offseason and win that QB2 battle. Because if they can justify it, and let's face it, if Josh Allen isn't starting for us, Chris, how many games are we winning?
Not a lot.
So if that's the case, wouldn't you want to save yourself a couple million shekels in the pursuit of, hey, let's let the best quarterback go out there and be QB2? How many quarterback twos can you remember from the last 20 years, Chris? I remember a Jabron Hamden. I remember...
He might have been QB3.
He might have been QB3. I remember Jeff Toole.
Toole got some playing time.
I remember... Guys, in the chat, QB2 that you can remember who never got to play.
Thad Lewis.
Lewis.
He played.
And these are all guys who were not good NFL quarterbacks, but they were good enough to play 3 games a year. If Mike White can't...
Ralph Wilson in the chat. Mitch's best throws was rice at Josh's wedding. Nailed it.
Spin with Nate Peterman. Flutie.
Yeah, Flutie. That's a class. I'll be fine with a Mike White at 2. And this is the only attribute that I'm going to take Mike White over Mitch Trubisky, and it helps playing quarterback, is that I think Mike White has better anticipation than Mitchy Biscuit.
He also actually has better accuracy in the 10 to 15 yard window. Now, I was going to have Chris pull it up and use it as a lay-in and do all this fancy stuff, but we're not doing any of that tonight. Tonight, we're drinking and we're celebrating the fact that it's a Friday night. And in that way, he actually has better, intermediate accuracy and a little more velocity on those types of throws, which if there's no Josh Allen, the playbook changes anyway. There is only one Josh Allen. And so if you're going to do that, you want a guy who in an offense like ours that has to spread the ball around, you want to know that your quarterback can throw into tight windows fast with a little bit of velocity. And if he's going to take a deep shot, that you're sure as hell not going to underthrow it. In that way, Mike White actually makes more sense than Mitch Trubisky, even if their draft pedigree would have you disagree.
Yeah, Mitch Trubisky couldn't hit sand if he fell off a camel.
It is hilarious that we're here talking about Mitch Trubisky, right? Like Mitch Trubisky at this point in the summer. I hope I never have to talk about this guy again. I hope in 4 weeks, all we can talk about is how it was a bad memory, that it's like we almost don't remember the Mitch Trubisky era in Buffalo because nothing came of it, even though he was like one of the higher paid backup quarterbacks in the entire NFL.
That Shavers touchdown against the Patriots. Jets.
That'll be his singular contribution to the Buffalo Bills. I also like the narrative coming out of practices about Harrison getting shown a lot of love by the coaching staff and the rest of the players for a rookie. This is a thing that multiple reporters have discussed, just how much attention he's getting. Not in terms of hooping and hollering and everybody giving him high fives, but in terms of tutelage and in terms of encouragement and constructive criticism. I think that that's important, right? First round pick at cornerback Max Hairston. everybody's raved about how his, he was sold to us as this high-end athlete compared to all of the guys. He was a surprise pick when we took him, considering all the names that we had spent the offseason kind of comparing to the Bills and saying Trey Amos makes sense. Who else, Chris? It was Trey Amos. It was, who was the other cornerback? I've already forgotten him because they're not on the Bills roster. That's why draft season is hilarious. You spend all draft season memorizing these guys' names going, oh man, if we can just get this guy and that guy and that guy. And the second you find out they're not wearing your team's jersey, you forget about them completely. So all of these cornerbacks that we thought, the kid from ECU, all the guys that we thought might have fit for the Bills, and they kind of took the least heralded one in terms of Bills content and in terms of Bill's prognostication and scheme fit and all these things. But everyone who sees him goes, this kid's such an elite athlete. Like years of covering the team, we haven't seen anything that looks like this. When he tries to break, a lot of times stiffer but like bigger, more physical cornerbacks will have a hard time breaking down, flipping their hips, and then cutting with a wide receiver. And Hairston, just by comparison, makes it look so easy. What I find interesting is that as he's going through these practices, he's not just being left on an island to figure it out. It's almost rep to rep. He's got a player, a position coach. Somebody's coming over to give him some constructive criticism, to give him some pointers, to congratulate him on all the things that he did correctly in that one play. He's getting a noteworthy amount of attention from the entire roster. Trey White coming over and talking to him after he gets beat on a route, and he looks visibly frustrated. Coaches pulling him aside after a successful coverage rep, but pointing to like, you could have cleaned this up and you could have cleaned that up. And if you had been a little bit sharper here, you might have had an interception or a chance to make a play on the ball. It's not something that every single rookie gets. And I think that's important to understand because it kind of tells you, Chris, what they think about his upside and also where he might be slotting in when training camp rolls around. And they start divvying up who's running with the ones and the twos and the threes. If you want to do me a favor, pull up Our Lads. Buffalo Bills, Our Lads. I just want to see it. Because when you take a look at who his competition for that CB2 job is, who's really in his way right now? Scroll down. Let's see the defense.
Well, I was going to say, I'll get to this, but there's a guy for the Packers that has been released.
I don't want to hear anything else about Jay. He's a Dolphin. Jair Alexander's a Dolphin as much as the day is long. And the reason I say that is because he's really injured a lot of the time. And that when he's injured, he makes enough plays to make you think he's worth a bunch of money when he's not injured. So that sounds like everything the Dolphins do. The Teron Armstead signing. Think about all the free agent home runs, the Bradley Chubb trade. He's a Dolphin going away.
Yeah, you got Trey White, you got Dane Jackson, Dorian Strong, Jamarcus Ingram, Daryl Porter, and then Codrington.
Who's pushing Hairston for starting cornerback duties across from Benford? What? Is it Trey White, who by all accounts has also had a rough offseason because he's older and his athleticism isn't great? I mean, Max Hairston looks to have the inside track on the CB2 job, and hearing that he's getting all this extra face time with the coaching staff and he's getting all this support from the rest of the cornerback room almost kind of underscores that. I mean, not that we have a problem, but they're really kind of putting a lot of eggs in the Max Hairston CB2 basket. They need this kid to grow and understand pretty quickly as they head into training camp. And then throughout training camp, I bet you we're going to see even more of this, that he's going to be out there in meaningful snaps early in the season as a rookie. And I mean, it's... Now, what do you think, Chris? Because I know...
You know what this reminds me of?
What?
Of when you say, oh, looks like we're going to be putting Hairston out there. I can remember Trey White's rookie year against the Bengals. Do you remember that game? Because we didn't have anyone else at corner. He just got abused by A.J. Green.
A.J. Green one-handed catching over Trey White's head and then just like curling it in. And it's like, you could see Trey White getting up from some of the plays that were getting made on him. Just like, what the? Like, what is happening? You guys didn't prepare me for this. What they're trying to do now is get Max Hairston ready for that dynamic in the NFL. And honestly, there's probably nobody better for him to learn it from than Trey White. Yeah. I'm just, hey, kid, it will come at you fast. Keon Coleman is going to basketball catch over your face. And there's nothing you can do about that except for forget about it, get up the next play, and go try to stick with him. Watch his hands, see how he tries to set up for a catch. Try to get your hands in there. Do something to offset your size because you're fast enough to be there. It's going to be fascinating to watch how they prepare him. And for everybody who's kind of poo-pooing the idea of, oh, he's a rookie, so he's going to... I've heard this. I've heard the frustrated phone calls in the WGR, which is when I turned the radio station. Sean McDermott got fired up at one point because somebody asked him a question this week about young guys getting playing time. And it's funny that we're here talking about Hairston maybe being relied on just like Trey White was to hold down a starting cornerback job. This was his direct quote. We've always got to lean on young guys. Young guys play like anybody else. Young guys, old guys, doesn't matter. It's who earns the right to play. Bottom line, it's not that Sean McDermott has not played a young guy because he's intentionally trying to keep a young guy over here. It's who earns the job because I'm not going to put a young guy out there or an old guy out there if their teammates don't trust him. Bottom line. So that's how we do it. 9 years of doing it. It ain't going to change. I love that. As much as I hate the dynamic, and I've railed against it for years, I like that he came out in the media and just owned it. He was like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'll play whoever I think is best, whether you people like it or not. It's him giving us all the finger, and I respect it. Because guess what? You get to do that right up until you do it too much and you get fired. It's like me and my job. I get to have my opinions and tell everybody what I think. Right up until they decide that my way isn't getting it done and not producing the desired results. And then they put me on a slow boat to China, and that's the end of it. That's the end of it, and I get sent packing. Until then, Sean McDermott.
I'll get there quicker than you do.
You're going to beat me on the road to get fired?
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me that they are propping Max Hairston up, and it's even more alarming that he caught that injury. Which, thank God, he seems like he's going to be all right. You know, they said it's just a hamstring tweak and he's going to be ready for camp. But Max Hairston getting hurt, knowing that they've put all of this stock into trying to prepare him for this upcoming season, like that was a giant, I saw the tweet. They're like, oh, Max Hairston hurt, and looking at his knee, and I was like, damn it. And then he turns out he's fine. Which is great news because the injuries are piling up. That's another dynamic of this camp that I find fascinating. I don't know a time during this portion of the spring where there were so many players with injuries. The Bills have been keeping our friend, Dr. Kyle Trimble, busy over there at bangedupbills.com. The list of Bills nursing some sort of injury right now is kind of like the list of women I've disappointed over the course of my 40 years. It's long, it's prolific, and it contains a few names that when you see them, you wince and you go, ew. Oh, and I get slid a fresh bourbon because you know that's what I need. I'm on a roll. Let's go down the laundry list, shall we? The previously discussed Joey Bosa, who got hurt lifting weights, not even playing football. Joshua Palmer comes up limping after a drill. Both tight ends, Knox and Kincaid, knee sleeves and tape between the two of them. Spencer Brown, nobody knows exactly what it is. Team hasn't disclosed it, but he's not practicing. Safety DeMar Hamlin was seen walking around wearing a boot. That's good, right, Chris? When they put you in a walking boot? Mm-hmm. That's usually promising. Teron Johnson admits, like, hey, yeah, I'm out here and I'm banging around, but I did tear my labrum in that Ravens game. It's like, holy shit. First of all, the fact that he played in the Chiefs game is nuts. I have a torn labrum in my shoulder. Do you want to know how I got it, Chris?
Something Jack did?
No, I'm a hefty man. And I was a heftier man when I was in my early 20s. And I was trying to do a keg stand. And somewhere at the party, now mind you, 340 pounds of human being trying to do a keg stand. People are holding me. And then some female at the party decided to, what did they used to say back in the WWE in the 90s? Show the puppies. And everyone let me go. And it was me trying to support 340 pounds on my shoulders, and I just felt something pop. And it's never been the same. And it's like always loose. And I've taken a lot of PT and a lot of work at it. And this guy tore it diving. Just diving. It's like, what an aggressive human being. Teron Johnson's a monster. I would never want to get hit by that guy if he hurts himself like that, hitting the ground. Also, the Lone Granger somehow now has a leg injury, even though he hasn't missed much practice. Rookie cornerback Dorian Strong. His wrist is all taped up, the same one that he broke back in 2022. Cole Bishop and Cam Lewis have both missed time. Connor McGovern hasn't been getting any team drill work because he's hurt. Hang on. This is how long the injury list is. I have to stop and take a drink. Oh, that's good. What is that?
I got it in Atlanta. It's right above you, second top shelf from where the electrical outlet is.
Okay.
Jephthah Creed.
Okay.
So you can really only get it in the South.
Yep. I saw it when I was
here's
in
the thing.
Louisville.
Here's the thing why I went and poured that for you is because I gave you a taste test when I came back from Georgia with a $34 bottle, a $60 bottle, and an $80 bottle, and you picked the $34 bottle, which was a bottled and bond, and Jephthah Creed is a bottled and bond. So I am assuming your enjoyment of a bottled and bond. So
it's amazing.
Get a pour of bottled and bond Jephthah Creed.
I appreciate that. Also, you know who else is hurt? That bastion of wide receiver talent, Laviska Shenault. Yeah, he's missing from practice.
Dude, you know what I tried to do this week?
It's almost a thing like,
you know what
hey, Laviska, you've been missing practice. And his coaches go, we haven't really been missing him.
You know what I tried to do this week without using a form of payment?
What?
Is one of those new social media, I don't know, like, it's all the rage within social media.
When you say all the rage, you're so old.
I know. Well, I tried to do it without paying for it, and I haven't found that path yet.
You're not unemployed anymore, dude.
I know. I could pay for it if I wanted to. But it's that new phenomenon you see in Reels where you make everybody look like a 2-year-old.
Oh, no.
So I'd cut the Chenault clip with Prohaska where we all look like babies, but I haven't been able to find a source to where I can make that happen via video without paying for it. Because
Right.
I think the idea of you being a baby yelling about Chenault is a good idea.
It's a hilarious idea. At the time, I had a mustache, too.
I tried to put that in there, too, and it didn't work. It didn't look real.
So then, rookie first rounder Max Hairston, knee injury, not knee injury, hamstring injury, whatever it is. The fact that he's even in this conversation is alarming. And then, of course, like death and taxes, Balin Spector is hurt again. Now, Banged Up Bills put out a tweet.
You know, Kyle's over there like Will Ferrell in Talladega Nights at turn up the heat. You ain't playing. I know how you can be on the field.
He goes, because he put out a tweet and he goes, you know, my guess is something was aggravated last week with Balin Spector. And I go, yeah, me. I'm the thing that was aggravated by Balin Spector. This guy, like, first of all, we all have bias, right? Like, it's hard to say that he's underwhelmed, but that's only because like he hasn't lived up to expectations. The expectations were already set very low as a late round draft pick. But even then, the thing that frustrates me about Balin Spector is he's tricked everybody into believing that he's useful. And then when you rely on him for anything other than special teams, He falls on his face. The Ravens game, when they're like, oh, he'll be fine, we'll put him out there. Chris, how'd that go?
See, look, Balin Spector reminds me of your real dad. Balin's a low round pick or a high round, however you want to use it. He's 6th, 7th round. Not a ton of expectation coming.
And he somehow found a way to disappoint.
Still can't do it. Disappoint. Just like your real dad.
And he also just disappears for long stretches of time.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It's funny. Guys, trust me when I say I'm laughing.
If Balin Spector retires and he wants to find a new career path, he could try to become a magician. Just disappear. He's pretty good at it in his NFL career.
This is what I'll say. Balin Spector is a guy who I have it on good authority, knows what's wrong with him. He understands these soft tissue injuries he's getting, and he's just not up to the work that it takes to remedy them. And that's frustrating. And it's frustrating more to see that the team continues to rely on him in certain capacities. Like, guy, this time of year, everybody falls in love or hates certain players, right? Like, Chris, you were saying, what was it, Brandon O'Reilly?
Oh, yeah. Brandon Riley was a preseason darling.
Duke Williams.
He's wide receiver 6. Duke Williams could be wide receiver 4. Just let's just throw a 5-yard fade route into the corner. He'll go up and get it.
Didn't work.
No.
Christian Wade. I'm old enough to remember the Christian Wade summer.
Oh, because Wade had like 2 elite plays in the preseason.
Great.
Albeit against guys that now don't have jobs.
Literally guys who work at accounting firms in Home Depot. But that's cool. You did it. I'm not going to take that away from you. David Sills V. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, no, this is going to be great. Balin Spector is just a shade removed from that crowd in the sense that he tricked the Bills into putting him on the roster. That's it. That's all he's done. Is trick them into getting onto the 53 year after year because he's good at special teams. As soon as somebody else comes along who's better at this, he's gone. He has to be. And I'm not afraid to just say it. This guy drives me crazy. I hate his inclusion on this injury list, but it's kind of his own fault by a lot of accounts. It's maintenance, it's body care. It's like we just talked about how Josh Allen pays people to come in to help him at his craft. And he hires third parties and he does his own work outside and beyond the football team. Balin Spector isn't doing that. And then every year he's not available because of soft tissue injuries. It's infuriating to me. I can't stand this guy. But also, I can't stand people who freak out over what the team does then as soon as they announce that injury. They go, hey, guys, don't worry. We signed Shaq Thomas. For the former, whatever the hell his name is, Thomas, Thompson, doesn't matter. I don't care. Everybody making the Carolina Panthers, Buffalo Bills pipeline is still flowing. Get it all out of your systems. Let's hear all the jokes, bring all the tweets. It's fine. And it's easy to look at this move and jeer at it for a lot of reasons. It's easy to say that this is a joke and it's them being, sure, Brandon Beane scouted that guy. He was the assistant GM helping make the draft calls when the Panthers drafted him. That was a pick that Sean McDermott was consulted on when they drafted said linebacker. So when Sean McDermott brought his system to Buffalo, does it not make sense that that's another defensive player who, now that he's older, but even if he's a shadow of what he used to be, we at least know he knows what I like. It makes sense as a low-cost flyer, right?
Yeah.
Now,
you can look at that in the way of, okay, preseason happens.
Sure.
And you're running the ones in week 1 or 2 of the preseason. What if somebody gets hurt? What if we get another Milano injury? So then you have a veteran backup who,
guys, I don't think
might fill that role.
I think all the people who complain about these types of linebacker moves, I feel like they live in a vacuum where they forget what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years. Every single year, this team, and I almost think that there's a message in here that the team is missing. If I had Anthony Prohaska here, he could probably deep dive on it with me. and maybe we will over the course of the next couple of weeks. But here's an idea. You're a team that has decided that you want to live and die behind pursuit-style linebackers who are all small. They play physical, they punch above their weight class, but you thrive on small, physical linebackers who are fast and athletic, and they can eat up space and coverage, which allows you to run a lot of aggressive, but you can run a lot of aggressive A and B gap blitzes because they're small and fast and they can shoot gaps. Also, they can drop back in coverage fluidly. And when they're in coverage, they can make plays on intended receivers. They can make plays on ball carriers. Terrell Bernard is still big enough to rake the ball away from Mark Andrews in a playoff game. And at the same time, he's also fluid enough to come downhill on a running back and bring a guy down with some physicality at the line of scrimmage. But these small guys get hurt. Now, in a perfect world, and I think it's why every single analytic nerd out there goes, the Bills have to draft beef. They needed an Alfred Collins in the draft. They needed a Derek Harmon. They needed a big body to eat up space on the D-line and replace Daquan Jones, because this is a team that's loaded with smaller defensive linemen who are all just penetrators. Our defensive tackles don't eat the space that typical defensive linemen do on most teams that run systems like this. And then the guys that do run it have thumpers at linebacker who they can plug in. They have Leo Chenals, guys who are Sam linebacker, 6'3", 255 pounds, Reggie Ragland type linebackers. The Buffalo Bills stand pat with what Sean McDermott knows in his mind to be the best defensive format, which is small, fast, physical linebackers. Is anyone shocked we churn through them due to injury over the course of every single season? You shouldn't be. This is a war of attrition. That's what football is. And so in that way, this is a guy that they know, that they drafted way back when, and they say, hey, we know that we churn through these and we need bodies and we need veteran presence and we need a lot of stuff. He already knows kind of what we want out of linebackers. He used to have juice, and yeah, he's a year removed from an ACL tear, so he's probably going to need a lot of rehab. But if he can stick around long enough on the practice squad, probably, so everyone stop freaking out. He's not, I doubt sincerely that he's challenging for the 53. Bring him into the building and get a playbook in his hands so that when he's sitting on the practice squad, maybe by week 17, he's in good enough physical condition that when you're heading into the playoff matchup and you're not relying on AJ Klein, who's about to get into an RV with his family. You have a guy who's been in the building that you can turn to. And this isn't new. Look back over the last handful of years, Chris. 2024, we brought in Deion Jones and Nick Morrow. Neither one of them saw a single snap of meaningful Bills football, but we brought them in. Deion Jones used to be a big name at linebacker. 2023, we brought in AJ Klein. 2022, it was Markel Lee. Markel Lee was this kind of veteran journeyman style, but with some upside, athleticism, a guy that Bean had scouted, who they brought in, and they said Markel Lee is going to be our veteran addition to the linebacker room. He didn't make the team, but they brought him in. Tyrell Adams, AJ Klein, and Markel Lee were all linebackers who the Bills took to camp in 2021. All of them were NFL veterans with a lot of experience, and also some guys who Bean had scouted or who had played for the Panthers under both Bean and McDermott. This is not a new thing, people. They do this all the time. Chris, you look like you're about to explode.
What about your boy, Deron Lee?
I love during the pre-draft process, the year that the Jets drafted him, and I called him Keith Ellison 2.0. And then he spent time at camp in a Bills uniform. I'll never feel more vindicated about a pre-draft take.
He does have, I believe he does have a Super Bowl ring with the Chiefs.
Oh my God.
But that's like one of your, if not only player that you were dead set on wasn't going to work in the NFL and didn't, was Deron Lee.
So that brings me to linebacker conversation. this isn't a new thing. It's not a phenomenon. The Bills have kept at least 5 linebackers every season for the last 3 years. At least 5, sometimes 6. Depends on the need of the special teams unit. And as we talked about in a previous podcast, wide receiver involvement has come down precipitously year over year over year. And I think a lot of that plays directly into Sean McDermott's stated ethos. He says flat out, he does not like guys moonlighting in multiple positions as starters, whether it's you're going to be a key contributor on special teams as a returner and you're also going to be one of my top 4 wide receivers. Because in his mind, if you get hurt on a play, now I have 2 problems I have to find a way to solve. I need a returner and I also need a wide receiver. He doesn't like doing that. So he intentionally builds out the special teams so that he doesn't have to have his core offensive or defensive contributors play a role there. And I know I've bitched up a storm about it over the years, but I think that makes sense. Now, given how much nickel they play, typically 2 of their linebackers are special teamers. And the fact that we don't have a traditional Sam linebacker role to be had on this team, we usually just fill it with another defensive end. I could see this being a thing where we continue to drag along linebackers and keep some veterans on the practice squad. So with that said, I want to talk about players that we're rooting for coming out of the close of minicamp. You know, a lot's been said, some names have been named. Players we're rooting for ahead of training camp. And I got to start with our boy, Buffalo Joe Andreessen. Joe Andreessen, if you want to talk about a linebacker who's showing like he might belong here, first of all, doesn't it just feel good to root for that guy?
Yeah. Local guy. Probably been to Long Neckers. He's an easy guy to root for.
I remember telling my ex-girlfriend, don't go to Long Neckers. She's like, oh, why? And I go, okay, have you seen the place? It looks like a house with a sign slapped to the side of it. It's a gravel driveway with motorcycles parked outside. Don't go to Long Neckers. So one night, she and her friend Stacy are having fun and they're having a good time and they go, we're bar hopping. Woo! Let's stop in at Long Neckers because screw Drew.
Stacy is a bitch.
And they go, let's stop in at Long Neckers. Screw Drew. And they walked in and immediately were accosted by 6 different bikers within the first 20 minutes they were in the bar to a degree where they felt uncomfortable. And immediately left their beers at the bar and just bailed out the side door.
I could see that with your old lady. She strikes me as the type that knows about old bikers.
She starts these engagements because she's naive and then doesn't understand, like, oh, wait a minute, they don't like me for my personality. Oh no. I'm in trouble. These aren't just sweet old men on motorcycles.
Yeah. You have no personality.
So with that said, Joe Andreessen, number of great pieces written about him this past week. Joe B over at The Athletic, Sal Mariano over at the Democrat and Chronicle, New York Upstate, everybody wrote about him. He's having himself a hell of a spring. I also think that it's interesting in the context of what the wide receiver depth chart is. I mean, Milano, Dorian, and Bernard are already penned in. Not even in pencil. They're penned into the roster. It's in ink. But the Bills generally keep 5 or 6 guys. For Andreessen, that's great news because you look at this. Spector has been able to hold on to a job forever as a special teamer and the primary backup at middle linebacker. His lack of durability, which is already showing itself in this offseason, does create some opportunity for Andreessen. And I think it's worth noting that he is listed on the official depth chart as a middle linebacker. The team doesn't have a player right now who jumps off the page as a lock to play middle linebacker should the job open up. You know, when we drafted Tremaine Edmonds, when you have a guy that big, where else is he playing? He's either an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense or he's your stand-up middle linebacker. That's it. Now we have an entire linebacker core of guys who range between 6 foot and 6'2". All of them are under 250 pounds. And a lot of them, like Edu Lafoscio, 5th round pick out of Washington. That kid, everything about him screams, I can't play near the line of scrimmage. I can't come downhill and trigger against the run. I have to be off the line, playing out in coverage. I can do some work there. You know, in another life, that kid might have been a really good safety. I don't know that he's ever going to cut it as an NFL linebacker, in quotes. Outside of that, like, who else? Chris, pull up that Ourlads page. There's nobody over there, size and speed-wise, who makes sense for a middle linebacker role. Meanwhile, Andreessen is 1 inch taller and the exact same weight as Balin Spector. So if you were looking at this, even though Ourlads has Shaq Thompson penciled in as, and I looked at, I called him Thomas, and then was just like Thompson, Thomas, Naga, not going to matter because he's not going to be in the starting lineup anyway. I wouldn't be shocked if Joe Andreessen can parlay what has been a strong spring into a really good camp. He might be one of the few dark horse players who can really make a name for himself and maybe even grab a longer term spot here in a Bills uniform. You know, I just listened to a podcast where Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson, the Sam Monson who blocked us on Twitter, Chris.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. Sam Monson has us blocked.
They just last week pegged us as the Buffalo Bills as having one of the top 3 rosters in the entire NFL. That means that guys like Andreessen are going to have a much tougher time making the final 53 at the end of August. But I believe that the way that the roster kind of shapes up at that position and the way Spector's already hurt, there's already some built-in excuses, but also his play over the last few years, what has he done? That if there's a guy who can also play special teams at a high level and maybe, like, I don't know, you haven't seen the one game where he got to play, he had 9 tackles. Maybe he's a guy you give a little bit more run. I genuinely believe there's a battle heating up here, and it's Balin Spector versus Andreessen for a spot on the 53 every Sunday. And I love that. So for everybody in the chat watching this still, everybody here still with us, I want to open up a conversation. Who are we rooting for? It's springtime. We haven't done a ton of research. Who are the players that you're rooting for when training camp rolls around?
Here's where we'll start. And it's only because he's been a guest during draft season and has openly stated his dislike for said player in role with the team. And for me, it's going to be Anthony Prohaska's favorite, Dwayne Carter.
Okay.
Because he was on the show, and you know what? They did a film room. I don't know if guys in the chat had seen it. I haven't watched it. I know it exists, but Eric and Anthony did a film room with Dwayne Carter, and we know Anthony's not been happy with. I would say the fit of Dwayne Carter on this team and what they want him to do. I'm gonna just say that for the sake of. At some point in August, I can go, hey, Anthony, you were wrong.
See, because we're petty.
Yes.
We're the pettiest podcast. I'll tell you who else I'm rooting for. Just to kind of keep this going. Guys, in the chat, let us hear it. Who are you rooting for when it comes to training camp? Not just based on minicamp, not just based on OTAs, but just in general, when you look at the spread of the 53, knowing that it's going to be very difficult for dark horses to make the roster. I look at the Lone Granger, Cedric Van Prang Granger, and I'm shocked I can still say that correctly after all I've had to drink tonight. McGovern hasn't taken any snaps with the starters. He hasn't done any teamwork this spring. I think that that's given the Lone Granger a lot of time and a lot of opportunity to get familiar with the guys that he could potentially be working with on Sundays in the middle of David Edwards, Osiris Torrance, Josh Allen under center. That's a great thing for him. You know, when we drafted him, he was touted as the second best center prospect in his draft class, and we got him in the 5th round, and everyone thought that was a steal. And then he showed up and he was small. His strength wasn't as good as advertised. And it was clear that there was going to be some work there. But his technique was solid. It's like you understood that. No, I shouldn't even say small. He's not small, but he played smaller. His leverage wasn't great. There was just a lot of things that they were like, well, we're going to have to massage this. That's why no one took him in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round until the Bills got him. But what I do think is funny is that, like middle linebacker, the Bills don't have a natural backup at center outside of Granger. They've got a lot of guys who you can slot in. You could shuffle in Alec Anderson. But again, considering Sean McDermott's ethos and how much they use Alec Anderson in those jumbo packages, and maybe potentially his upshot at replacing David Edwards next season at guard, I don't know. You'd love to have a better backup plan in game on Sundays in October this year. Then, hey, let's stop putting Alec Anderson out there in jumbo packages, and instead let's move him to center. You've now neutered your offense and created 2 problems. One, you don't have a sterling center. You've got a guy who can. It's like when I play guitar. You know, Iman Azizi is a guitar player, and he knows guitar players, some really great ones. You know, guys, if you're going to be the 21st, we're going to be in South Buffalo at Porch Fest. Reach out to us at Rockpile Report to find out the time when Iman Azizi's band, he's going to have a guy who's played arenas playing guitar. He's got all of his friends that he used to press albums with, like coming to play on his front porch. They put on a hell of a show. You're an idiot if you don't want to see it. Reach out to us at Rockpile Report if you want to show up at Porch Fest, have a couple beers with the boys, have a good afternoon.
Is there a reason I wasn't included on this?
Yeah, because nobody wants to invite you to hang out in a yard. You'll just complain about it. And then also complain that we didn't send you a personalized text.
Exactly. I got bourbon I can bring.
Yeah, well,
turn around.
Maybe I'll text you tomorrow. So this is what happens, guys. There are guys who play guitar, and then there are guitarists. I am a guy who plays guitar. I'm a guy who can play a guitar in a limited capacity. Then there are dudes who just step up and they swing it. I would like to have a team that does not have a bunch of guys who can play center. I want another center on the roster. And Van Pran Granger looks like our pick to be it. Okay? And so with that in mind, if you're also being shrewd and cheap like me, you look at this and say to yourself, I'd love the idea that Van Pran Granger would have a great camp, great preseason, spend the year being the backup, win the backup center job, spend 2025, maybe he rides pine, maybe he, God forbid, he has to come in for injury, but he gets to learn on the job, spend time with the starters, be in game scenarios, especially games like New Orleans, where I expect we're going to be running out the clock, like backups in the early 4th quarter. But you can take that guy and make him your starter with the right seasoning and the right development. Make him your starter in 2026 in a year where Connor McGovern's going to be a free agent, and maybe you'd like to take that extra cash, not spend it at center. I don't know. Maybe use it to go address the skill positions, like paying a certain running back. I don't know.
Also possible.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
In the chat, Ryan Toggan with Trey White for CB3 is that's a good, because I guess he showed out last year he showed out in dime packages for was it the Rams or the Ravens?
The Ravens got him after the Rams cut him, and they flat out just said, listen, we know you're not starting on the outside, so we're going to work you into sub packages. And that happened to be where Trey White did his best work, when he's not being forced to guard the best guy in the other team, because that's suicide. He's old and he has knee injuries, multiple of them, significant lower body injuries. So instead, the team said, look, we're going to pair you up against a couple lesser than receivers, but your technique and your knowledge of the game is so good. He's an all-pro. Former all-pros don't just forget how to play the game. So in that way, if you find the right sub package for Trey White, he can probably still contribute. Who do you like, Chris? Max Hairston, like we can talk about this, and I'm sure it'll come up during camp.
Well, when you talk,
Max Hairston,
when you talk about Trey White, it's,
Christian Benford,
it's the mentality and intangibles for Trey White. He might not be physically able to perform, but he just knows the game, and you trust his instincts to come through in those situations.
Or do you expect him to, like, who do you want, him or Dane Jackson? I'll just put it like that. Him or Dane Jackson? I still have nightmares about Dane Jackson out there against Kansas City in that 13 seconds debacle.
Give me Trey White.
Just give me Trey White. I'll take that. And I like that one. I like Ralph Wilson Sr. in the comments with Solomon. Solomon on the defensive line. This is a guy who, Chris, pull up the Ourlads page. Solomon is a sneaky pick because I had Landon Jackson as one of mine here on my list. And I'll tell you why. It's not so much because I don't like anybody else. It's because I'm sick and tired of paying. And some of it's because I just didn't like him when he got drafted, right? AJ Epinesa.
Yes.
I'm sick and tired of AJ Epinesa. Everyone goes, well, he's steady. Yes, he's steady but unspectacular, and we are a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl. Yes, you need steady players, but sometimes I need a spark. I need you to be able to give me something. And in most big moments, AJ Epinesa disappears. He's a wallflower. Okay, we've seen enough of that, and now we're paying a premium for it. Please, for the love of God, let Landon Jackson and let Solomon step forward. Let them make him irrelevant, and maybe Javon Solomon and Landon Jackson become the rotation, and we, by the end of camp, can maybe trade an AJ Epinesa? Clear some salary cap? I don't know.
Kyle Washington put in Laviska Shenault, and I told him to fuck off on your behalf. He wants Shenault to succeed.
It's hilarious that this Shenault thing is even happening to me. And when I say happening to me, that's the narcissism. Like, it's not like, oh, this is a weird thing for the Bills to be doing. I'm like, why are you doing this to me personally? I like this. He probably will be inactive, though, if not starting, Joe Marino says. I'm going to fight Joe Marino on that take. We have to get him on this podcast. Guys, we back channel with him all the time. Like, we've tried, and it just, our timelines never lined up. He's like, oh, I'd love to do the show. And then it doesn't.
Well, you had him on at O'Neill's when you set up doing a podcast recording at O'Neill's without
burp into the microphone because we're professionals.
Yeah, because you didn't consult with me if I was going to be available to be able to produce it. And I was going, Jessica and I were going to Helium to see Jay Okerson. And you never mentioned to me, like, oh, hey, can we...
Hey, there's this big thing going on.
Can we go to O'Neill's and do this pod? And apparently Joe Marino just happened to be there.
Yep.
On a whim. And so it was like you, Joe Miller, Joe Marino, and
yep. He called
John
me the
Fina.
Mel Kiper of Bills podcasting. He goes, you were doing it before anyone cared? I was like, hell yeah.
Yes.
It's still the biggest compliment I've ever received.
Yeah, and for that, so everybody knows, next week we are celebrating 10 years. 10 years of the show next week.
10 years of this nonsense. And here's what I love. I love the fact that all of these guys have gone on to be wildly more successful than us. But I never needed success at this. I didn't set out to do that. I set out to appease one idiot with bad hair, although his hair wasn't this bad when we started this.
Much shorter.
And I just tried to do a cool thing with a friend, and then it turned into a decade of us slugging beers, yelling about football behind cameras and, well, behind microphones, now behind microphones and cameras. I don't know. It's an awesome thing to be a part of.
Do you want to get on Twitter tonight and complain that we're not as big as Marino or a Cover One, like some other Buffalo media outlets like to complain about?
No.
We should be as big as Cover One, and we should be as big as Joe Marino.
Listen,
yeah, you could be if you stop talking about fucking Madden ratings.
Here's what I'll say. I've always believed in the same ethos that comedians do. Famine mentality will kill everybody. There is no, like, rising tides float all boats. When I started this, Chris, we were pumped to get 50 downloads. When we hit it, we were like, yes, we've done 5 shows and 20 people listened. Woo! Awesome. This is amazing. And we rode that thing. And then a year in, I remember being like, there's only 100 people listening. I don't know what to do. What do we do with this? And I remember threatening to quit because I was like, this isn't going anywhere. This is stupid. And then I learned to let go because I realized that it didn't matter who was listening, like the number. It mattered who was listening in terms of the people. Because then we started to meet people. People started showing up to the tailgates.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, I found you on SoundCloud. You're like, what?
Who is the there is a Australian dude that came to a tailgate and was like, had to been 2016 when we had started, and was like, I found you guys and you sucked.
Yeah.
And we're like, yes. Then I came back.
Because I took a 5-year hiatus.
I took a hiatus.
He goes, one day I'm scrolling. Chris, he goes, one day I was scrolling my phone and I go, oh, those guys, I remember when 5 years ago I saw their podcast and they were terrible. They're still here. He came back and listened to it and was like, oh, you guys got way better at this. It's like, yeah, because I don't know. We're just, and who knows? Maybe now we're worse. I don't know. I don't care.
Worse.
We're just doing what's fun. And what I love is we've cultivated the right audience for the fun we like to have. And I love that we get to share it with you guys. And so in that spirit, knowing we are the Pettiest Bills podcast, I want to end this show with not just who I was rooting for, but also who I'm rooting against. You know who I'm rooting against, Chris? What's that painful face?
I was going to say, if you wanted to run, if you're still watching this, you've been watching for a while, and you are our people. I was going to say end the show with your idea for the next 5 weeks.
No, but I've got that. I'll give you that. But first, what I have to do is I have to hit these people because, again, our ethos is we are the Pettiest Bills podcast. I'll tell you who I'm rooting against for all of training camp. You know who it is, Chris? It's both punters. I'll see these guys in hell. Camarda, Robbins, you're both dead to me. And do you guys want to know why? Because some dork decided it was a good idea. You know, Chris trying to get in on this YouTube algorithm thing, he starts putting out shorts. And some dork left us the snarky response to my opinion that no one should be hyper-analyzing a punting battle unless they're being paid to do it like Joe Buscaglia is. And his rebuttal to me was that the friends and family of these players might want to keep tabs on their process, on the process and how they're doing. Are you kidding me? All 45 of them? All 45 of the players' immediate families, their grandparents, their first cousins, and maybe their high school football coach who still gives a shit. They have this single hyper-specific interest in the Buffalo Bills, and the fact that they have it because of that punter is a good reason for Joe Buscaglia to be running around with a hand timer, timing punts, as if anyone else cares. Like, that's something to be published and agonized over? And then he ended it with this. You're a special kind of jerk. Do better, please. Number one, you are incredibly observant. I am a special kind of jackass. They don't make them like me. I'd like to think I broke the mold. I'm a real horse's patoot. I won't do better. I will not. This is what you get, and you're lucky because you're just getting my change up if you're watching this. No one gets to see the high heat unless you show up to a tailgate and I've been drinking bourbon. Paul Revere, on his famous midnight ride, to warn Sam Adams and John Hancock that they were about to be arrested by the British Army. He accidentally alerted more people than Joe Buscaglia's articles about the punting competition will ever resonate with. And it's hilarious to me that there's someone out there who's willing to die on the hill that this Puntapalooza competition article is somehow worth a damn. It's a response that even at a base level, like even if at a base level, he's trying to be sweet and saying, listen, think of the families. it's based on such a flawed premise, it's turned me on both of the players. I hope, just for that guy's sake, that both of them get cut. I hope that both of these guys, neither of whom have a lick of NFL success, are going to stroll into camp. They're going to play really, really hard. They're going to work their balls off. And then some guy who gets cut from another team who's been punting for 10 years is going to stroll onto the Bills roster and just blow the doors off of both of them and then hold a kick. Well, Bass kicks it for 45. And the coaching staff's going to go, yep, boys, pack your bags. All that work didn't mean squat. And I'm going to laugh about it because I'm a bad person. And that's what this podcast is. You take the good with the bad. Of course, what is you take the good, you take the bad. You take it all, and there you have the facts of life.
Yeah.
How do you like them apples? We still are the Pettiest Bills podcast. Guys, for the rest of the offseason, we have a really fun series in mind. We're going to relive some of the most glaring, for both good and bad reasons, drought-era football games. 20-ish minute YouTube shows with a lot of production, graphics, things thrown into them to make them fun. In fact, we're working on guests that we could get to share their insight, kind of a where were you when this thing happened? You know, you see those things on the History Channel all the time. Where were you when this event took place?
There's a handful of games, like you could think Dallas Monday night, Cleveland Monday night, Cleveland 6-3. I think there was Cleveland 8-0 with a playoff berth on the line.
Yep.
There's certain games out of like chime in if you're in the chat if you want to, of like certain drought era games that you just specifically remember. Like just for me, because we're gonna end up doing it, the 2009 Falcons game that I went to where Brian Brom was the starting quarterback. I had to witness that.
We're going to spend the next month while everybody else is talking about position battles and other things. We'll be doing live shows where we will talk about football things, but we're also going to start just kind of an off-season series where we relive some of the most glaring games of the drought era and relive them and talk about where were you? How'd you absorb that? What was your experience? And I'd love for you all to take the ride with us.
Jeff Toole and Brandon Whedon on
Jeff Toole, 99-yard pick six. Like, there's too many to choose from. We've managed to whittle it down to a list. We've found a list of guests. Now we just got to record them and put them out there for public consumption. I can't wait to do it. We'll do them as premieres so that Chris and I can be in the chat with you all. Well, you show up and we can talk about it, and then he and I can talk about it not on camera. I think it's a lot of fun. It's something new, and that's really what we're doing here. We're spinning plates because after a decade of podcasting, we got to keep it fresh, or else I'm going to die back here. I'm going to start smelling like onions, as if I don't already.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is our only YouTube content for the week. You might do some audio only stuff, but yeah. This show that you're watching right now it's our only YouTube content.
And I have so much fun with this format. I love this. I love steering into the video aspect of this. And I like that you guys interact with us. It really does make this worth doing.
I think that Colt 45 sign makes it worth doing. I'm looking at it right now on camera. It is.
You're an idiot.
That Colt.
Where were you?
It works every time.
See? Like Super Mexican. Where were you when that chick traded a sexual favor outside the stadium for a Kiko Alonso jersey?
That had to have been a mudlot thing.
Of course.
That had to have happened in the mudlot.
My point is, there's a million stories that we all know where we were during a game. I want to get us all together so we can talk about it. Guys, this has been fun, but for tonight, we got to get out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. This has been your Rock Pile Report.